We'd always try to get interesting speakers to come and talk to the students. She was Captain Hopper at the time, was available as a speaker. And of course, the students, most of us didn't even know who she was at the time. But some of the faculty said, oh, no, you want to hear Grace Murray Hopper. They said I volunteered to be the chauffeur and shuttle her around anywhere she needed to go. I had to be at her call, and that's how I came to meet her, was just being her driver. So I was terrified of being late. I got to the airport really early, so I was right there on time. She was still in the Navy at that time, I believe. That was the early '80s, so she hadn't retired for the nth time. She was retired, call back, and then finally retired. And so she was in her uniform, and so as we were driving, I just happened to ask her, what was it like, being a woman in the Navy. All the men in my family have all been either the Navy or the Marine Corps, and I was just curious, what was it like being a woman in the Navy? And she laughed. And said, well, she hadn't noticed any particular advantages or disadvantages of being a woman in the Navy. She said it more mattered what you did rather than what you were. Mm-hmm. And that stuck with me as kind of an amusing observation for somebody at that time.
Yeah.
Considering that she had been in the Navy since the World War II. She talked about that for a moment. As soon as World War II had threatened and started, she tried to get into the Navy, and they wouldn't take her. They said she was too old, all right? She was too slender, and she was too short, okay? And also, she was too valuable teaching mathematics. She had a PhD in mathematics from Yale, and at the time she was teaching at Vassar, and they said she was too valuable teaching. So she kept trying, and eventually she took a leave of absence from Vassar and joined the Naval. She told me she joined the Naval Reserve, and that's how she finally got into the Navy. Somebody had actually done some background research and had found out that, hilariously, when the Data Processing Management Association instituted their Man of the Year award back in the 60s at some point, the first person they gave it to was Grace Murray Hopper. And someone said, well, so how do you feel being named, the Man of the Year? And she laughed at that. She said, well, it just goes to show you that when you create an award, you better be careful when you name it, because you're never sure to whom you're going to give it. So she didn't seem offended by that at all. She thought it was pretty humorous. She said, no, don't be worried about that. The important thing is that your achievements are recognized, even if they don't know how to name it.
Hi, my name is Tulsi Chandwani. I'm doing my Master's in Computer Science, pursuing my thesis in Database and Information Systems under Dr. Chenkaili. Being a thesis student has given me lots of opportunities to explore my research interests and gain expertise into them. CSE department at UTA provides you wide variety of courses and multiple domains of research which one can benefit from. There is an extensive research going on in machine learning, data mining, HCI and other major areas of computer science. you will find lots of distinguished professors and their team working on cutting-edge technological projects which are backed by National Science Foundation and various other research institutes. Working with these people who have been internationally recognized for their major contributions, I take pride that I have been taught by this scholarly group of UTA.
Hello everyone, I am Palak Diwan from India, a computer science graduate student. Back in India, I was introvert and very reluctant in communicating with people, and it made it difficult for me to manage everything here in USA. Since we all know networking is all about connecting with people, and you should take that first step to approach. Being a hesitant person, it was not that easy for me. After coming here, though it took time, I was able to come out of my shyness with the help of the professors and friendly behavior of the seniors who encouraged me a lot. UTA has various cultures, where you will find a lot of cultural organizations trying to come along and build a strong team. I really love to be a part of this university. Now I can confidently say that I am an ambivert maverick.
So, Ming-Li,
Yes.
why did you choose UTA?
Computer science and engineering has a very good ranking in terms of computer science and engineering, so I can work with some good students and even other outstanding researchers in the department so as to carry out some interesting and challenging research tasks. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to working at UT Arlington?
The most important thing for an assistant professor, at least for me, is to carry out solid and interesting research work. And what I'm looking forward to is to work with a bunch of brilliant, outstanding colleagues and also master's students and PhD students on some challenging research tasks.
But she was a big advocate, as I say, of getting away from centralized, computers that were just locked away from people. She wanted distributed computing. And at the time, they didn't have the vocabulary that we have now for describing it. But if you look back and see what she was talking about, she was effectively describing what the internet should be today. In a different set of terminology, but complete distribution of information and accessible to anybody with a connected, she called them terminals, but a connected terminal, just accessible to anyone, but distributed, not controlled by any central source. I can tell you, after talking to her, and just seeing how she answered the question, all like that, I don't think that woman was more proud of anything in her life than her service in the Navy. And the advantage of continuing that service and being part of the team that had effectively, if not the first, one of the first computers. in case you're unfamiliar with a nanosecond, just a 30 centimeter piece of wire. This is the distance that light travels in a vacuum. So this is the maximum distance that electricity can travel in 1 nanosecond. And she used that in her talks to describe how the size of computers had to shrink if you were going to make them much faster. You know, the faster you make it, the smaller it has to be. You know, it's because it's clear that if a computation's happening here, it can't possibly affect the computation happening here, accepting that it takes at least a nanosecond for the information to travel. And that was really kind of interesting, and someone asked her, well, how did she happen to come up with this particular way of describing it? And she said many non-technical senior level people in the military, admirals, generals, whatever, you know, would complain to the technical people, you know, why can't you do something about the delay in satellite communication? All right, because, well, they're non-technical, and so they don't know any better. And so she created this as an example to say, well, we can't make it any faster than this. That's a physical limitation. She also had a coil. This is actually made from fairly heavy-duty wire. She used wire wrap wire when she gave them out. It was like 28 gauge wire. But she had a coil of wire that was 300 meters. And she said, now that's a microsecond. Okay. And so anytime you talk about the limitations of communication, you just have to consider the physical impact of it. And so she did an excellent job. At the time, picoseconds were just a dream at the time she gave the talk to us. And so she didn't do it. But I hear that later she started carrying around little packets of black pepper. And where a grain of black pepper was a picosecond. And it was like, okay, now they really small. So that was interesting. But one of the things that sticks in my head a great deal from Captain Hopper's talk with us was she left us with the comment, do dangerous things. You know, and I later heard that a quote had been attributed to her, you know, that ships are safe in a harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. They have to sail, okay, in order to achieve their destiny. Well, she hadn't made up that quote, you know, or whatever. I don't remember it from when she talked to us. But what she did say to us, I clearly remember, was do dangerous things. You know, someone asked her, what do you mean dangerous things? Well, things that you don't know whether you're going to succeed or not. You know, you have to keep reaching for stuff, but you don't know if you're going to succeed. You know, you don't want to stagnate. You want to reach outside. You want to extend your goals. You want to keep going further and further, because otherwise you stagnate. And she said, don't stop doing dangerous things. So we all thought that was great, you know. Well, we were undergraduates.